Hey, it is March 15th, 2017. Almost 1 year since I did my first The Expanse Book 1 versus Season 1. And I got a comment from Chew Harm asking me to do more in depth with spoilers. So, sure, this is for True Harm and anybody else that's watching. I'm still in Saudi Arabia in another city. It's called Hyle. And yeah, it's better but worse. Anyway, so The Expanse Season 1, the TV show, ends with the main character getting sucked up by some kind of biological entity in Ceres space station. That's it. It leaves you on a cliffhanger, and you don't really know what's going on, what's happening, and that's it. So that's the whole thing, Season 1. It just ends there. Now, the book goes so much further than that. Actually, where the Season 1 leaves off is probably about, I think, 80% of the first book. So the ending of the first book goes kind of like this. So you have this entire space station that gets taken over by the alien entity, and it basically turns it into a living ship, this giant asteroid. And they try and dislodge it. There's this whole series of events that take place with the detective, and he goes to find Julia and all that, which is very interesting. It makes the character arc of the detective much more interesting, and just he becomes, at that point in time, my favorite character in the entire book series at all. And he basically kills himself to try and stop this alien entity, and it doesn't really work. And the entire alien entity crash lands on Venus, and that's the end of the first book. So instead of having this giant cliffhanger, you end with the readers thinking that, okay, like, this virus has somehow kind of been contained. It's more of an ending and, of course, a new beginning for the second book. But you don't have this cliffhanger. Many more things have been resolved in the storyline itself. And so you feel a more sense of completion. When I watched the first season, I loved it, but it was just terribly slow. Setting all the characters, setting all the shots, and the real world that The Expanse takes place in was nice. I thought it was slow. In comparison, I feel like the books move very quickly and they do not dawdle on anything. I think the writers do an excellent job of moving the plot along, and this is one of the biggest changes with the books and the show. Each book, except for the last one, Book 6, which I haven't done a review on because it was my least favorite, and I just have nothing good to say about it. Maybe that's the reason to do it. Each book has this large event that happens in the books. They have this big pinnacle event that happens, and then there's the resolution, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes it doesn't actually help. It's just kind of like, okay, something's going to happen next. And that happens in the first book with the destruction of the protocol, of the protomolecule into Venus, and you're like, okay, everything is kind of taken care of. You know, everybody on the ship is, better, or better is not a good term because the captain and the engineer Amos have like lifetime radiation poisoning, which really goes into the depth of the characters. Like, they're forever altered by this single event in the first book, which then, like, they mention in later books, but it has repercussions, which is very nice. Like, they just don't get out cleanly, and no one has like a perfectly happy ending. The Millennium Falcon just doesn't like fly away, and Han Solo doesn't go Yahoo. The characters are actually damaged by this event. So much as the detective is actually like he dies, which is just very good ending. The sacrifice of Christ and everything is kind of mirrored there. You have this entire question of morality that echoes through the entire book. You have the question of like, is killing one person better than killing, a million? You have the entire idea in the protomolecule of, should the government or should corporations test this thing, and then they test it on the population. That leads into book 2 of The Expanse. And so really good, hard-hitting, moralistic questions that really just flow right into book 2. So I haven't watched season 2 yet. I'm kind of waiting to do it all in one go. So book 2 I already gave a review for, but again, True Harm wants to know more, so here we go. Book 2 is much more interesting, in my opinion, than book 1. It starts off with a Marine, and she is kind of taking the place of the detective. Not as interesting, but she's like a really gritty person, and I like that she continues all the way into book 6. She's in and out of the storyline, which is cool. In book 2, you have an innocent. It is kind of like Julia Mars, or whatever her last name is, in the first book, but this is just like a little girl. In the second book, it basically, her and some other children are being tested with the protomolecule, and they become like giant, crazed, not cybernetic, just like molecular monsters that they can survive in space. And book 2 has this much more feeling of like an excellent like B horror movie from the 1950s. Also, you definitely get in book 2. At the beginning you have from Venus, the protomolecule rises, and at the end of the book, then you have the big event where it creates this like Stargate kind of thing. So again, in this first book, you have the protomolecule becomes literally a giant spaceship, which is like crazy cool, and that like really moves the plot on what's going on with the spaceship. And then in the second one, they open this gate, which leads on to the third book. I think the second book is maybe one of my favorites because it has this B horror. They're fighting these monsters, and this Marine that is like the very beginning of the second book, where she has to fight off one of these monsters with her whole squad, and they all get wiped out because this thing is just insane, insanely strong. It's very good. So I think that I can't really compare it to the season yet because I haven't watched season 2 of The Expanse, but season 2 is one of my favorite books. One of the other spoilers, I guess, is you have this idea that the captain now is still somehow communicating with the detective in the book, and you don't really understand it until near the end. You find out that there's a little teeny bit of the protomolecule that's on the ship, and it's working kind of like an Ansible system or a communication device with the with the captain. And so you find out more about these people that created all these Stargate kind of things. They're like wormholes, Stargate kind of. I don't know what they are. And so again, like the plot like really moves quickly, and there's not a lot of downtime in the first or the second book. And that's probably one of the reasons why I read them so quickly, is because the characters' actions have significant repercussions. Nothing is really in a void. In the series, everything really plays off each other, which is a sign of like good drama. But again, in the second book, the characters aren't as harmed as they are in the first book. They're still kind of like getting over what happened. What's very different in the second book is you have a person taking action. You have the captain and Amos. They fight more with weapons, which is kind of like, okay. You knew Amos has this like gritty backstory, which comes out more in book 6 when they actually go back to Earth. And they actually do fighting and killing people. And again, like the idea of the riot, the idea of the mob is very visceral in book 2 because you're now dealing with these space stations and their effects of the universe or the solar system is this very tightly woven thread, and now like pieces are being ripped out. And this again is brought into fruition in book 6 with like the giant free navy thing and all that. So again, like what starts in 2 kind of like finishes off in 6. And yeah, book 2 was one of my favorites. Any more spoilers I just can't think of right now. I read the book probably over a year ago. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching season 2 of The Expanse, and then I'll maybe do a comparison video. I just can't imagine they're going to get very far. I think that maybe season 2 will just finish book 1, which is kind of like what they did with Game of Thrones, but they have so much to get through, and this book series is such an acclaimed hit so far that maybe they want to do it justice, and maybe they see that as going slow, or maybe the Sci-Fi Network didn't have enough money and they wanted to test it out on a few episodes before they did a lot of episodes. I really don't know. Anyway, that's 10 minutes, and I'm trying to keep these short. Thank you so much, True Harm, for making that comment and getting me to do a video. I have not done a video in a long time. Living in a new place and everything has taken a lot of time. Also, we built a house this year, and I'm starting a business in Thailand. So, been doing lots of other things. I've been playing a lot of games, but I have read book 6, and I'm currently reading The Fall of Hyperion, which is okay. I'm not liking as much as Hyperion. Anyway, if you want to hear more about sci-fi stuff or games, let me know. Have a great day, guys. Bye.